isn't it, Williams? With Mark Shaw.
Hi.
A cup of tea.
Yeah, we've moved on to the tea now. The lattes.
So one of the things you have a kind of bee in your bonnet about is how everybody gets kind of hooked on how many followers have you got on Twitter. So, you know, I know what you've said to me is it's not about how many followers, it's about making yourself genuinely followable,
yes.
if you like.
Yes.
So how do you make yourself genuinely followable so that people will naturally start to follow you?
Okay, one of the easiest metrics that people measure people's so-called success, for want of a better word, on Twitter, is how many followers you have, because that's the first thing that's very obvious, okay? I would argue that that's a very meaningless number, okay? It's meaningless if those people that are following you have been acquired through either auto-following people back, because at the end of the day, they're not actually listening to anything that you're saying.
It's just a tick in the box.
It's just a tick in the box. They get another follower, you get another follower, and you're just moving up the numbers game. But does it actually mean anything? Are these people actually going to do anything when you send them a link, ask them to do something, retweet your information or whatever? Through my own experience, I would say no. You know, I've got 12,000 people that are following me. You know, quite a number of those just don't do anything because they're not really listening to what I'm saying. Okay, so golden rules about how to become more followable. Really, the first thing is the basics. Have a proper profile. Okay, a lot of people turn up to Twitter and they don't give it the serious attention that it should deserve. It's like a little bit like opening a shop. Okay, if you turned up and opened a shop, you'd have a nice shop window, you put the sign up, you're open for business. Do the same with Twitter. So let's get a nice photo. And I would always suggest, if you can, a nice photo of you, not the business, not the icon, not the logo, that sort of stuff. People want to engage with people.
They're following you as a person.
Correct.
Not the business.
Correct. People don't typically follow inanimate objects, they want to follow people. So let's get a nice smiley photo of you, you know, not Darth Vader, not in a dark room, that sort of stuff. Secondly, let's write a bio that is actually inviting people to want to follow you. So
is that about being an expert or a specialist in something, or?
I think it needs to cater sort of 3 or 4 things. Remember, you've only got 160 characters, so you can't write War and Peace. It needs to demonstrate very quickly what your expertise is. So 20 years helping in people become inspired entrepreneurs, whatever that is. Okay, so a little bit about that, what it is that you do, okay, how you can help people, and a little bit about you personally. So, for example, mine says something like advising businesses about Twitter. I've been doing it for 2 years. And then I am a massive fan of, you know, TweetDeck, Haribo's tweets, fresh air, humour, latte, and telling it how it is. So, just a bit of personal stuff. Remember as well that your bio can be searched for the keywords. So, add in some keywords that you'd like to be found with as well. And then the last thing really is to add your website details. So, you know, good photo, good bio, add your website details. And finally, you need to start sending out some messages. Because when people turn up to your profile and they look at what you've been doing, if you've only got one message, you know, the typical, hello, I've just started on Twitter message, and nothing else, why would I want to follow you? So, start sending out messages and people will start coming along. One of the things I talk about with clients is stop chasing followers, okay, and instead start chasing conversations, okay. That's where the action is, and that's where people should spend the majority of their time. I'm not saying don't look for people to follow, because I think you should follow people that are in your peer group, that you're interested in, and so on.
I would certainly say, as I'm very new myself to Twitter, really only a month or 2 into it, I think for me it's been quite legitimate to follow other people just to see what they do and see what I like and don't like about it, in a way, because I didn't know what the rules were. I didn't know the rules of engagement. It's like walking into a party and not knowing how to start a conversation in a way.
Well, you know, one of the things I say to people is it's not a rush, it's not a sprint, you know, take your time. When you turn up on Twitter, you don't have to be following or doing anything dramatic, you know, getting these 10,000 followers in a week type bits of software, ridiculous, okay? When you first turn up, start to follow people that you think can help you, add value that you can learn from. You might want to follow me because I send out tips all the time. Follow people that have been around for a while so you can learn the sort of etiquette of what to do and so on. After that, I would suggest you only really follow people that add value to what you're doing or to your followers, which is based on your criteria. Okay? How you get followed is by engaging with people, by answering questions, by joining in the conversation, by demonstrating your expertise and your knowledge, by listening, by talking, by getting involved.
By being inspiring and by being a valuable resource to people.
Correct. That's how, and then people, you surprise, will start following you. The other thing to remember is the whole thing about getting retweeted. Okay, retweet is when you find a message that's interesting and you want to pass it on to your followers. Okay, one of the greatest things about getting retweeted, and the more that you can do, the better, is that then suddenly exposes your message to a whole new network of people that don't know you, and then they'll come along and check you out.
Some of them will come along and check you out and become your followers.
Correct.
So the more value you add, the more you're going to get retweeted. So even if you only start off with a couple of followers but add a lot of value, and then they start putting you out to their networks, that's how you're going to build your network.
Well, for example, exactly, I had a client a couple of weeks ago, literally just started, had no followers, no one that he was following, nothing. But what he did, he went to a conversation, he found a topic that people were talking about, databases and all that sort of stuff, very boring, but he makes it quite interesting. Found a conversation, found someone saying, I need some help, dived straight in to help them, got a client out of it within 10 seconds, okay, with no followers and nothing. So this idea that it only happens with followers is a misconception, okay. A lot of
value added more than anything.
Correct. Do you want to add value, be a great resource, and people will follow you.
Great. Thank you very much for throwing some light on that.
Thanks very much, and great cup of tea, by the way.
Cheers. Thank you.